Hello and good afternoon, friends. Welcome to the CEC-UGC live lecture. Dear friends, we would like to tell you all that from today onwards we are starting a very new series, and this series is on political geography. Because this is the first session in this series, so we would like to introduce today's topic. We would be discussing on political geography of resources. In the first half, we would be discussing on resource conflict, whereas in the second half, we would be discussing on international water conflict. And for this very discussion, we have with us in our studios Dr. Intikhab Ahmed. Dr. Intikhab Ahmed is Assistant Professor in Dayal Singh College, University of Delhi. Dr. Intikhab Ahmed has immense experience, and we believe that his experience would appear to be very, very beneficial for us, because most of you are going to get in-depth knowledge on the topic. So without wasting any time, I would like to welcome our guest, Dr. Intikhab Ahmed. Dr. Ahmed, welcome to the EduSet lecture.
Thank you. Welcome, students. Today, as we are discussing about a very new topic in political geography, as political geography of resources and resource conflict. So in this session, first of all, we would like to know what is a political geography and why different resources are important in political geography. As before starting this topic, I would like to tell you what we are covering in this political geography of resources. First of all, we should know that what are different kind of resources and why they are important, what are different resource conflict, what are different strategies of resource conflict management, and what are different strategies of management of the resources, why these resources conflict take place. Before going into further detail, I would like to start this lecture that why these resources are important in political geography, because the physical aspect, they also are very important in resource. And the main objective of this lecture is that what is the geopolitics behind these resources, why they are important. So before further ado, I would like to tell what are different resources. Different resources, they are resources are those which are generally given by nature. In fact, we are talking here about the natural resources. These resources has been classified into two categories: renewable resources and non-renewable resources. The renewable resources are those resources which are given by nature and which we can renew if we are utilizing those resources, like air, wind, water, solar energy, and land resource. On the other hand, the non-renewable resources are those resources which are non-renewable in nature, which can't be renewed in the future, like fossil fuels, like petroleum and coal, and the metallic minerals which are metallic in nature, like iron and different kind of copper products. And there are non-metallic minerals like salt and phosphorus. So these resources are very important for the progress of any country or any nation. So before going further, I would like to say why these resources are important in the study of political geography. Because resources provide the base of any country's progress, of any country's development. So generally, the countries, they fight for the access of the resources, and these resources are important for the well-being, for the economic of any country. Why these are important? The resources are important for the public, for the masses. They are also very important for different aspects, because they provide the economic assets. They provide the economic assets, like they provide various raw materials for various activities. They provide the raw material for the industry. They provide the raw material for agricultural production. They provide the raw material for infrastructure, for tourism industries. In fact, they provide the administrative territories. They provide the territories in terms of land resources, and they give the national importance, because the resources, they give the importance in terms of like oil resources in Middle East and their production, and they are known for their export business. In fact, some of the African countries, they are also known for their national image. We can take the example of diamond. Like in Botswana, the country is known for its diamond production. In fact, they provide the national image in terms of various resources. They contribute different kind of, and they make the particular image of that respective particular country, particular region, or particular any state. In fact, they provide the geopolitical importance in terms of various geopolitics behind these resources also take place, the strategic location of a particular country, and the availability of the particular resource that may be within the country or that may be outside of the country. In fact, they provide the global and regional importance. So these resources are very important for any development of any activity. In fact, before going the further ado, I would like to say that generally what we study in political geography of resources. So political geography generally studies or provide with a true understanding of how these relationship, what is the relationship between geography and politics, and it also looks how different government and countries, they are affected by different physical setting. So what we study in political geography of resources, as the land and natural resources, they are important for various activities like group and territorial identity. In fact, various groups, they are known for their region. Like we can take the example of oil exporting countries, they are known for their formation of that group. In fact, the territorial identity is one of the reason which we generally study in political geography of resources. Political geography is the main consensus, main issue for which different countries fight over. In fact, the political autonomy, this is the most important aspect in resource conflict, resource fight. Different countries, they fight for their political autonomy to gain their political autonomy. In fact, different assets like social assets and economic assets, they are also studied because of their significance, because of their social and political importance. In fact, they provide the economic base. Different resources, they provide the economic base for which the different countries are known for. The economic setup, the economic base of any country is defined by the availability of the resources. So before going into further discussion, we should know what are the conflict. What are the conflict? In fact, the conflict may be for different purposes, for different reasons. But in political geography, we study the resource conflict. So first of all, we should know what are the different conflict, what are the conflict in general. As conflict is a disagreement between two or more people or state who have differences in their goal or method for dealing with a situation. It may be in terms of ideological difference, ideological dispute. It may be in thought process. This conflict may be for any purpose or any reason. But here we have to discuss what are the resource conflict, why the different countries they fight for the resources. And resources are the most important aspect that are the base that make the best base for any country's progress, for any country's development. So the resource conflict, they refers any conflict or any dispute that result from improper utilization, improper distribution of the resources, and because these resources are generally considered as common resources, common property resources. So by seeing all these, we can see that there are various types of conflict that took place because of the resources. At broader level, we can see there are 4 types of conflict that took place. The first one is secessionist conflict, in which a particular country tried to split away from the mainland country. And because of the availability of the resources in that particular zone, in particular region, those particular regions tried to split away from the mainland country or mainland states. We can take the example of Southern Sudan that has been split away from the mainland Sudan or from the Northern Sudan because the Southern Sudan is having the availability of the great amount of mineral oil. In fact, on some extent, we can take the example from the Indian state as well, as Jharkhand and Telangana, they has been split away from the mainland states. The second type of conflict that may be because of the disputes over resource as part of a new national compact In fact, different regions, they try to take that advantage, take that institution if there is any new constitution or if there is a new agreement between different parties. So this may also lead to a kind of resource conflict. The other type of conflict is grievances over a standalone project, when a particular region tries to make any kind of infrastructure facility or try to make any hydroelectric dams or started mining in a particular region, then it's also led to a kind of conflict. The last type of conflict or the next type of conflict is when there is a clashes over resources, a small clashes over resources that may lead to a different type of or a larger scale conflict if those clashes will not be covered. So this is the fourth type of conflict. In fact, before going into further, we should know what are the major contentious issues, what are the major issues by which different countries fight over. So there may be a one reason for the conflict, or there may be multiple reasons by which different countries they try to fight for the access of the resources. The important issue is ownership of the resource. The ownership of the resource is the most important issue by which different countries they fight for, because each and every country tries to gain the access of the resources, the ownership of the resources. The second major issue is allocation of power for managing developing of the resources. Means different countries they try to allocate the power or try to take that power of those resources by which they can access, they can extract, or they can mine that particular resource. And the next contentious important issue is the distribution of resource revenues. If we can see that in a particular region there are resources and that country is taking the advantage or profit from that particular resource revenue, and how these revenues will be distributed in future, these are also one of the important contentious issues in the resource utilization and resource distribution. In fact, these environmental and social damage which are causing different extraction to the resources also led to various kinds of conflict. So before these contentious issues, we should also know what are different kind of resource or what are different drivers that led to the resource conflict. In fact, the drivers of conflict are most often multifaceted. They can be various factors which led to the or which drive to the resource conflict, or there may be various combination of factors that drive to the resource conflict. The most important thing that drives to the resource conflict is the scarcity of the resources. As we can see that scarcity of the resource is the most important thing, because if there is not the supply of a particular commodity is not there, that will led to the scarcity of the resources. This scarcity is seen by three types. This scarcity may be by three ways. One is from the supply side scarcity. The supply side scarcity is when the supply of a particular commodity is low in comparison to their demand. This led to different scarcity. And the second factor is the demand side supply scarcity. Demand side scarcity is when the resources are very much in demand and the supply of those products is not reaching up to that mark. This also led to the scarcity of the resources. And the next scarcity is structural scarcity, when there is not proper utilization or management of a particular commodity, particular resource. This also led to the scarcity. In fact, the other drivers of the resource conflict is abundance of the resources. Sometimes the abundance also led to resource conflict. How this abundance led to the resource conflict, drive to the resource conflict? The abundance of any resource may lead to the lootability of the resource, or there may be greed of that particular product by which different countries, different organizations, they try to maximize their profit. The next factor is inequality that drives to the resource conflict. In fact, inequality in different type of resources may lead to the different kind of resource conflict. The inequality may be in terms of inequitable utilization of the resources, or the inaccessible or the unaccessibility of the resources, which may lead to the resource conflict. The next factor is the poor governance. In fact, the poor governance is also led to various kind of resource conflict. If the government of a particular region is weak, that may not provide, or that sometimes the government favors to some groups, which may lead to the different kind of resource conflict. The next driver of the resource conflict is transboundary natural resource dynamic and pressure. This is when different countries they share the different kind of natural resources. So some of the organizations, some of the region, they try to make that particular resource as they try to share those resources by pressure techniques or by other methods. So this we can see that the inequitable access of land and natural resource, this also led to the, in fact, in globally we can see that in the Asian region, in African region, in South American region, the inequitable access to land and natural resources leading to different kind of inequitable access to those resources. Then the most important thing which led to and what are the causes of resource conflict? In fact, there are various causes of resource conflict. Like majority of the conflict, they range by various things. In fact, there are various causes of resource conflict. This is the first one is economic globalization. The economic globalization is the most important cause of the resource conflict, because with the dawn of the human civilization, different countries, they are trying to make, or the world is being globalized. By this globalization, the demand of different products is increasing because of the higher standard of living, higher demand of the product. This is also very important cause of the resource conflict. The second important cause is unsustainable consumption of the resource. In fact, the unsustainable consumption of the resource is leading to, or is very important cause, because if we are using different resources by unsustainably, like we can take the example of mineral oil or the petroleum product, or we can take the example of the water resource. In recent time, we can see that in last 140 years, the use of the natural oil or the petroleum product has been 1/3 of the petroleum product has already been used, and until 2020, 1/3 of the more petroleum reserve will be used, which will lead a very much like unsustainable utilization of the resources. And in fact, water resource is also one of the important. In present time, we are using water irrationally, that is leading to the different kind of environmental hazards or different kind of pollution problems. The next important, which is very important factor, is population growth. This is one of the important cause of resource conflict. In fact, we can see in the world, in the globe, the population of the world in present time is more than 7 billion, and in coming time till 2050, the population of the world may be till around more than 9.3 billion. With this increasing population, we need more resources, more kind of resources, and because if the population increasing, the demand of the different products that will be increased, which will lead different kind of dispute or conflict. The other factor, other cause is economic warfare in poor and developing countries. In fact, this is we can take the example from those countries which are very poor. Like we can take example from the African nations, where the particular resource, because those countries having only few particular resource, if some of the organizations, some of the politician, they try to take the advantage of from that particular resource, and the poor people, they are very on the disadvantaged side. The next cause of the resource conflict is climate change. In fact, climate change is a very important cause. This is not directly related to the resource conflict, but indirectly, or it is the multiplier of the conflict, because with the changing climate, different resource, there is a depletion in the resource, there is a accessibility, and there is a very much atmospheric weather climatic event, sudden events, which are leading to various resource conflict, and because of the different other factors. The technological innovation, in some countries, the technological innovation also led to various kind of resource conflict. Then market mechanism is also one of the important cause, because different organizations, they give the value of the market mechanism. They set up the price by which there may be conflict. After seeing all this, we should know what are different people who will be affected if there will be any conflict or any war. So this resource conflict will affect more of the most vulnerable people on this planet Earth. The poor landless women, the indigenous people, they will be affected the most by these resource conflict. And in fact, the subsidiary right, if they are not be reached to the vulnerable people, they will also affect the most. And in fact, the right of those people, which they should be given, if they will be abrogated, they may lead to the environmental damage. So after seeing this all, we can see that historically there are various war and conflict that has been taken place. In fact, we can see from the dawn of the human civilization, various wars has been taken place. But in last century, we can see, and in present 21st century, there are various conflicts which are taking place because of the resource conflict. We can see that between 1965 1990s, around 73 civil wars that has been taken place, and out of that, around 18 civil wars were that of international in nature. And we can see that middle of this century till 2050, when the population of the world will reach more than 9 billion people, that is the need of the energy will be more till 2050. In fact, that will be doubled, and the demand of the water, fresh water resources will increase maybe till more than 55% as compared to the 2012 data. These projections shows that in the near future, the demand of the resources will increase, which will lead to the different kind of resource conflict. In fact, in the 21st century, the need of the earth is to deal these resources, not in isolation, but taking all the parties together. By this, we can, or different countries, they can share these precious resources. In fact, different governments, they are trying to make different kind of planning and management strategies to deal these all the issues. If in the coming time in the developing countries, with increase in the demand of the energy product or demand of the raw materials, there may be more fight, there may be more incidents of the resource conflict, because the population increasing and then that is demanding more of the resources. In fact, the climate change is very important, which is also leading different kind of problems all over the world, because with the changing climate, the various kind of environmental system, they are being changed. The intensity of the rainfall is changed. The availability and the different kind of resource utilization is changing all over the world. So the climate change will affect the food, water, land, and other vital resources. So there are certain conflict prevention strategies that should be taken up into consideration. Like to establish, there should be different kind of joint institution, agreement, or resolution mechanism. In fact, there should be different hotspot in the different region that should be taken into consideration. And there should be different mechanism that by which the sustainable utilization of the resources may be taken up. So with the increase in the availability of renewable resources, the different restoration and production work or infrastructural work should be taken care of. And by this, different government, they try to make either different substitute of those product, or they divert the different kind of demand. And for this different organization of the world, they are trying to make the interference when there is a conflict. And different communities, they are coming closer by itself. If they are not met, they are not solved by their own countries, the international organization, they should come closer to that particular prevention of those resources or conflict. For this, there are various international organizations that are working to overcome or to intervene in that particular process. The various international organizations, they are like UNEP, DPA, Department of Our Political Affairs, UNESCO, UN Water, and UNDP's BCPR, WFP, and FAO, World Bank, UN Habitat, UNFCCC, and UNDP Dry Land Development Center, and World Food Program. In fact, working through the UN system is very important, because UN or the international organization, they try to channelize different kind of resources, or they can invest in those resources which are renewable resources. So there is a need of the international community. There is a need of the different parties to come closer to those resources, or the dispute mechanism strategies. First, those countries itself try to manage that particular resource conflict. If that country or those countries are not coming closer, the international organization, they should come closer to that particular to mitigate that resource conflict. So in this session, welcome students. In this session, before I start, I would like to tell you that in the previous session, what we were discussing. In fact, in the last session, we were discussing various issues, various types of resources, why they are important, what are the causes of resource conflict, and what are the different strategies of the resource conflict, what are different organizations that are working for the prevention of different resource conflict. In this session, we are discussing different aspects of international water relations or international water disputes, because water is very important resource because it is the ambient resource. The availability, the quantity, and the quality of the water varies. In this session, we are discussing about the water availability, water as a common property resource, and different concerns of the water resource, different conflict of the water resource, what are the causes of the international water resource conflict, and what are the different strategies, what are the different regions or the hot spot of the world that are very much prone to the resource conflict or international water conflict. We can take, in fact, the example of Nile River Basin countries and what are the different management strategies by which the different countries, they can come closer and mitigate these resource disputes. So in this session, I would like to tell you what are the different aspects of water resource management, because water is the ambient, very important resource. We can see that globally, around 71% of the land mass of the earth covers the water and around 29% is land. On that 71% of the water, around 97% is salt water and around 3% is fresh water. Out of that, only we use 1% of that water for different kind of human activities that is found in different forms, like in lakes, in rivers, in moisture, and in different soil systems and different that is very much for different kind of ecosystem. But before further going, we would like to know what are different kind of common property resources, as water is the most important ambient resource. In fact, it is very much precious natural resource that is vital practically for every aspect of human life, between for human, for animal, and for plant life on the earth. In fact, the availability of the water can make a difference between life and death, between bounty and poverty. Therefore, this presentation deals the common property resource in general and water resource, transboundary water resource in particular. In fact, we should know what are the common property resource. These are those resources which are generally having no boundary or territory, and they are also not owned by any country or any person. So after knowing what is a common property resource, we can see what is or water as a common property resource, because water is the most important resource by which or upon which different kind of activities are dependent. Because water is found into different hydrological zones, hydrological cycles. The water is which is found into different hydrological cycle zones, like the evaporation, the condensation, the precipitation, and again the same process starts. So this hydrological cycle also define where there are different kind of deficient areas, where are the accessible areas. The changing demand and utilization of the resource also affecting the availability of this common property resource. In fact, we can see the scarcity of the water is also very important, because there is an unequal distribution of the resource or the water. In fact, we can see that 12% of the world population utilizes around 85% of the water resource of the world. So there is a huge inequality between different parties. And globally, we can see that the water scarcity is large in different countries, different continents of the world. There's a physical water scarcity if we see the example of the North African countries and the Middle East countries. In fact, there's an economic water scarcity in Central African countries, and there's some of the countries, they are approaching toward the physical water scarcity. And those countries are Central Asian countries and the different countries of the US and Mexico. So we should know what are the different concerns of the water resource. In fact, there are various concerns of the water resource, which are inadequate access to safe drinking water. In fact, in present time, we can see that around 1.1 billion people on this planet Earth, they are utilizing or they are not having the safe drinking water facility. In fact, more than or the overuse of this water is leading to different kind of or leading to the diminishing agricultural productivity, or the overuse and the pollution is also harming different kind of biodiversity all over the globe. The small scale conflict also led to a large scale warfare or violent conflict. So after seeing this, we can see that there are various drivers of international water conflict. In fact, the most important driver of water conflict is the population, because the population increasing day by day, because the population, as the population increasing, the different industrialization, because the process of industrialization, urbanization, and construction of dam, and the pollution and deforestation, they are taking place. So these are the important drivers of the international water conflict. And different developmental activities, they are also taking place, which is leading or which is demanding more of the water, and that is leading to scarcity of the water, because the supply of the water is very limited. If we see the fresh water in general. So we should know what are the important dimensions of water resource. In fact, water is found on this planet Earth, as we have already seen, around 71% area covers this water. So the availability of the water, the timing, the location, and the reliability of the water is very much variant on this globe. In fact, different local or regional issues, they are also important, because if the water is found on a particular region, that cannot be, if that will not be transported to other water scarce region, the utility, or this is the most important dimension of the water resource. In fact, the variability in flow and the availability of the water is also very important, because different resource, the availability of the water and the accessibility of the water is different, and the demand of the water is different, because these are two different aspects. The population and the water, they are found on the different dimensions. So what are the important dimensions? This timing, location, and reliability, these are the important dimensions that are very much important. So what is the nature of the water resource at a global level? We can see the nature of the global level because of the increase in the rapid population growth, which is leading to the more demand of the water resources, and which is leading to the reduction in the annual per capita water supply, due to it is because of the increase in the population and the degradation of the water quality. In fact, we can see the statistics in African regions. The reduction in annual per capita water supply is 2.8 times. In Asia, the reduction rate is 2 times. In South America, it is 1.7 times. And Europe, it is 16%. And globally, there is a reduction in the water per capita water availability is 5%. So by seeing all these, we can see that there are various important causes of international water conflict. As Anthony Turton said, that the scarcity of the increasing scarcity that led to the competition is the most important factors or important cause of the international water conflict. Because conflict, they generally take place either between different countries or between larger territories. That conflict may be between multiple ethnic groups within one region, or this may be between different control of different strategic sites. So we should know what are different kind of water conflict. We can take the example from the global level. Different kind of resources, they are generally the water conflict, they are generally found in those particular regions where the water is shared between different countries. In fact, the scarcity of the water resource and the need of the water, they are very much needed because of for the human development and the human development and the economic development, the need of the water is more. In fact, we can see global population increasing, which is demanding more of the water for different activities, for drinking water, for different production of the food, for the sanitation facilities, and for hydropower generation and for production of the crops. In fact, this ineffective procedure of distribution system is very much related to the conflict, because if there is a improper distribution or inequitable access to the water, different regions, different countries, they try to maximize their benefit from those particular water resource, because these countries, otherwise these countries will fight for the access of the water. So we can see in different regions what are the different water conflict regions, what are the different water conflict zones, which the water conflict zone globally we can see are in the Mediterranean region, especially in the southern Europe, in North Africa, in Middle East, Northwest and Southern India, in Mongolia, in Northern China, in different African countries, United States and Australia. In these countries there are prevalence water conflict. So we should know what are the water scarcity or shortage of the water resource. As we see that water is needed for all aspects of the human, animal and plant life on this planet Earth. So we need the food production, food security, human health and natural ecosystem to sustain by this water resource. In fact, the growth or the rapid growth in the population is also demanding more of the water for agriculture, for industrial and for municipalities purposes is also needed more of the fresh water. And when these water problems or scarcity become an issue, become a serious problem, in fact when the water availability is between 1000 to 1600 cubic meters per person per year, that is called water stress. If the same problem is when the water availability per person annually is less than 1000 cubic meters, that is considered as water scarce region. So this led to the problem of water scarcity. By this statistics we can see that globally there are around 28 countries that is having more than 338 million population that are considered as water stressed countries, and more than 20 countries which are water scarce in nature. If by the same statistics we can see that till 2025 around 50 countries of the world, they will be very much water stressed. And if we see the present time, the need of the water or the shortage of the water, in fact half of the billion population on this planet Earth is more or less facing the problem of water shortages, which in the near future till 2025 roughly 60% of the population or 2/3 of the population that will be having water shortage problems. So the need of the hour is to cooperate between different regions. By the same statistics we can see that the transboundary water resource, there are various facts regarding the transboundary water resource, because around 260 countries or transboundary, there are 263 transboundary lakes and rivers that share the water, and that covers roughly 45.6% area of the globe, and having around 40% of the population in those regions, and the flow of the water is around 60% in those transboundary rivers, and around 140 countries that include different river basins. In fact 12 countries lies between the international basins. By this we can see that the two rivers or the two countries, the river is generally shared between two countries. Some of the rivers, they are shared between around 5 to 8 countries. There are 13 countries which are shared between 5 to 8 nations. There are 5 basins in the world which are shared between 9 to 11 riparian nations like Congo, Nile, Niger, Rhine and Zambezi river. They are shared between 9 to 11 countries. In fact, the most or the countries which shares the most of the river which shared most of the countries is Danube river, which is shared between 18 countries in the European region. So we should know what are the categories of international water conflict. There are certain categories of international water conflict, like control of the water resource. Who will control the water access or the water resource, and where should be the supply of the water resource? This is the root of the main tension in the international water conflict. it also works as military tool. Sometimes this water acts as military tool. Sometimes it works as political tools. Political parties, they try to, or politically some of the countries, they try to manage the water for their benefit. In fact, sometimes terrorism also led to the, or it is also one of the category of international water conflict. Then there is a military target of water, international water conflict. Then different developmental dispute also take place when different water system of the world, they try to take the advantage from economic or social advantage from that particular water sharing mechanism. So by seeing all this, we can see that what are the major water conflict all over the world. In fact, there are several hot spots in the world where different rivers, there is a contention between the sharing of the water dispute. These regions may be identified as like Nile, which is an African region, which is shared between the 11 riparian nations, the Jordan River, which is shared between Israel and Jordan, the Tigris and Euphrates River, which is shared between Turkey, Syria, and Iraq, the Mekong River between Thailand and Vietnam, the Danube River between Czechoslovakia and Hungary, the Colorado between Mexico and USA, the Amu Darya and Sir Darya between RLC Basin. So these are the major hot spots where the conflict, these are the conflict zone or conflict prone areas. So by seeing this map, we can see that there is a fragmentation of and regulation of different rivers. Like some of the region in Africa, in North America, in South America, in Asia, some of the regions, they are the highly affected water sharing regions. Some of the regions, they are unaffected regions, like we can see in the northern belt of the northern circle, northern Arctic circle. So by seeing all this, we can take the example of the water sharing in the Nile River Basin. As the Nile River Basin is shared between 11 riparian nations, this is the longest river of the world. The length of the river is 6853 kilometers. Its basin covers around 34 lakh kilometer square area. There are two important tributaries of this river, White Nile and Blue Nile. In fact, the Blue Nile originates from the Lake Tana and White Nile from Lake Victoria. There are 11 countries from where this river takes its water. These countries are Egypt, Eritrea, Burundi, Ethiopia, Sudan, Southern Sudan, Kenya, Tanzania, Uganda, Rwanda, and Democratic Republic of Congo. So the total population of these countries is around 425 millions. So seeing all these statistics, what are the major conflict, major contentious issues in this Nile River Basin? Because this river is shared between the 11 riparian nations, but the more important countries where there is a conflict or which are on the forefront, they are Egypt, Sudan, and Ethiopia. The contentions or the conflict is because of the colonial agreement, as Egypt always contest and said that the colonial agreement, by colonial agreement, it acquired its right from the UK, because it was the colony of the United Kingdom. And there are certain historical acquired rights by which this country try to take the advantage of the water resource. Sudan also sometimes is with the Egypt and take the advantage of those acquired right or colonial agreement. But Ethiopia, as the Ethiopia is the largest contributor of the water in the Nile River Basin, around 86% of the water comes from Ethiopia, but it does not use any amount of water. And those two countries, Egypt and Sudan, they uses around 98%, 99% of the Nile River water. The country which is contributing around 86%, Ethiopia, is not getting any amount of water. So this is the main contentious issues in this water Nile River Basin in different countries. Because these different countries, they try to take the advantage from those different initiatives, different agreements which were taking place in the colonial period. In fact, there are various initiatives in the different initiative in the Nile River Basin. In fact, various countries, they are coming closer and they are cooperating to share these resources. For this, various agreements has been taken place, like two of the important agreements which took place in 1929 and 1959, that has given the absolute or the veto right to the Egypt and Sudan, and Ethiopia was lagged behind, and that Ethiopia does not get any amount of water. And different other initiatives that were taken place were 1967 Hydromet project and Undugu project of 1983, Taco Nile project of 1992, and the Nile River Action Plan of 1995. And after that, 1997 till 2007, there were various cooperative framework agreement in the Nile River Basin. And in 1999, a organization of these all countries, more or less of, all of the countries, has been set up, namely as Nile River Initiative, which is working as Nile Basin Organization. So by seeing all these, we can see that different countries, they are coming closer to different, because these countries are actually dependent on the agriculture. They are agricultural economies. So they are trying to take the advantage from that particular Nile River Basin, because these countries are very much downtrodden, very much poor countries. They are having a huge amount of malnutrition, poverty. These are all like disadvantaged phenomena are found in these African countries. So these countries are trying to come closer and utilize the water of the Nile River to maximize their profit, to feed their population, to make the food security. By this, these countries are trying to come forward and trying to set up different kind of structures, like setting up different kind of dams in upstream and downstream countries. So by this all, we can see that the water management is one of the important aspect by which these all hot spot or the conflict prone zone can be managed. So first of all, we should know what is the water management. As the water management, in simple word, we can say that it is an art of making those decisions by which all the countries, all the parties, they should be disadvantaged. That will be in terms of water management, because water is, if that will not be managed, that will be flow without any purpose, without any reason. So water management is very important aspect. In fact, the gist is that various countries, they are utilizing the water into different ways. So they should come to a platform by which they can maximize their demands and fulfill their demands. In fact, in different regions, it is said that the water management is a kind of social interaction by which different countries, they may come closer, they can set up and they can set the targets for better management. In fact, in the Nile River Basin, we can see that the water is the very much important resource, as the different countries, they depend mostly on the agriculture. And if the agriculture will not be provided, the people, they are the most important resource in that region, because these countries or the population or the people of these countries already, they are dying because of the hunger, because of the poverty. So maybe Nile River Basin or the sharing of the Nile River Basin in that manner by which all countries should be get the benefit from this river is very much important. And in the last, we can say that the demand of the water is increasing day by day, because water is very much finite resources. If the demand of the water will not be met, because different nations, different countries, they are trying to get the most access of the water, of this transboundary water. In the coming futures, around 50 countries of the world on 5 continents, they will fight for the access of the water. And different countries, they are trying to manage different kind of infrastructure, different kind of infrastructure facilities. So the need of the hour is to manage these resources, these all resources in that fashion, where the cooperation of all the countries should come closer, and the different countries, the confidence building the management of the water should be there. So by this presentation, we can say that the international water dispute and this different kind of civil disturbance, different kind of conflict, they should be overcome, and the shortage of the water and different kind of energy resources, that should become closer, and the demand and the supply of these energy product will be overcome. Thank you very much.
With this note, thank you, sir. Thank you so very much for this wonderful lecture on resource conflict and international water conflict. When we are talking about conflicts at the international level, so what do you think? Do we need to have a continuous negotiation with the different countries so that all the neighbor countries or the other countries of the world could combat with the resources problem?
Actually, the conflict management strategies, if the same countries which are discussing or which are negotiating that particular agreement, because these are the countries, African countries, they are contesting for the colonial agreement, because they are demanding the colonial rights, but the countries which are contributing the most, they are not getting that amount of water. So the cooperation should be in that fashion, because ultimately the human being, they are the most ultimate resource. If they will die because of the hunger, because of the inaccessibility of the food, so the population is the most important resource, and those population, those living, those people, either they are from different regions, they are from different countries, they should be managed, they should be saved at any cost. Those are the most important resource.
Definitely, the resources are for the betterment of the society only and for the betterment of the country only. And when we talk about the sustainable development goals, so we can think of that, yes, water as a resource, if we say, it would be used by the future generations or the people in the other 10 to 20 years. So in that context also, water should be saved and should be utilized properly.
Like water is very ambient resource, because availability of water on this planet is very much. If we fully utilize the water, that is sufficient for all the human beings, but the quality and quantity of water is different. So that should be used in very sustainable way. In fact, I have talked in that my lecture that the unsustainable use of the different resources, that is leading to the different kind of conflict. If that conflict we have to solve, sustainably we have to utilize different kind of resources, either maybe water, it may be land, it may be oil resources. These all resources should be in that fashion by which there should be cooperation, the utilization should be in sustainable manner by which we can save different humanity.
Definitely, dear friends, we believe that this lecture might have appeared very, very beneficial to you. If you have any kind of feedback or a question to be answered or any kind of suggestion you would like to give to us regarding the lecture, then you can mail us at info.cc@nic.in. Your feedbacks are welcome, and yes, your questions would be answered when the next time Dr. Intikhab Ahmed visit our studio. This lecture is going to be uploaded for you on YouTube. So keep watching us, keep writing us. We are there for you. Yes, your feedbacks are important. We will be meeting again very soon. Till then, take care. Goodbye. Thank you, sir. Thank you so very much.